In today's video, I will show you how to create animated ads. We'll be using VO3 and GPT Image 1, which is basically the latest model. So let me just admit everyone. So as usual, if some of you have never been to our meetings, you can stop me anytime and ask questions. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. So this is not just a presentation, this is a deep dive. So if you have any technical questions or anything that you would like me to answer, don't hesitate to question me, and I'll stop and take the time to do that. So in today's video, we are going to talk about N8N. We are going to talk about Airtable, and we'll be using different concepts to trigger those different automations. So the problem that we are going to solve today is basically creating a lot more videos for ad creatives. So we've all seen this new stuff where people are slicing kiwis and stuff. Let me just show you what I mean by that. See, these kind of videos, they look cool, but I don't think so. These are the kind of videos that we want to be creating. Instead, we'll be creating videos like I've shown in the school group. So these kind of videos, let me just show you. Where is it? It's here. It's a bit enthusiastic. So we are going to create scroll stopping videos, just like this one or like that one. So this is primarily designed for lead gen and for direct marketing. So this actually has an impact on the bottom line. I don't think those kiwis and tomatoes will ever have an impact on the bottom line unless we are able to make something really educational or something interesting. Otherwise, I think at the stage it is now, it's better to focus on whatever is going to get people to click and to land on the landing page. So this is the type of videos that we'll be creating. So let me just admit everyone inside the meeting so that we can talk. Do you have questions or anything for me at this stage? Don't hesitate to go inside the chat and ask. All right, so next. So we are solving the problem of creative bottleneck. So basically, if you've ever been into media buying or if you've ever been working with clients that are spending around about anywhere between 50 to 100K, even more, you know that basically they can't create videos fast enough. So the traditional process, and this is the best case scenario, takes 8 days to get a video and usually costs a few thousands. So now the system that I'm about to show you in this video, we can create those videos in 90 seconds. They cost $8 per variant. So this is a little bit expensive. I will show you different ways that you can reduce this cost. But at the moment, this is the cost of VO3. So even if you are using systems like 4 models, here you'll see in the playground, for instance, we are paying $3.75 for a 5-second video. That's without the sound. So you just need to, that's with the sound, sorry. So you just need to double that because 5 seconds is not quite nearly enough. There are different systems, just like this one, like 4. We are using Replicate, but there are different stuff that have recently released these kind of models. They don't really come cheaper, or if they do come cheaper, the sound isn't embedded inside the video, so you need to add an additional layer with the sound, and often the voice isn't synced correctly. So at the moment, VO3 is what works the best for what we do. So let me just go back to the presentation. So in my opinion, this is a complete economic disruption for video testing, because when you find a variation or a variant that works really well when it's AI created, you can focus on that one and create it with humans. So it makes the testing process a lot faster. So it's just not a matter of creating a huge quantity of videos. It's also a matter of being able to identify those that are going to work when they are properly produced. So the reason why this is painful is because campaigns are dying while waiting for fresh creatives. So do we have any buyers in here? Just pop it in the chat. Yes. So you know that creative is really painful and expensive. So the teams are often overwhelmed and scaling is impossible if you don't have enough creatives. And yes, it is very time consuming. And the testing velocity is also really, really important. So this allows to test really, really quickly. VO3 changes everything, in my opinion, because in the past, well, at least in the last few months, we've been using agent and tab use and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, it's too robotic, and now people are quite used to it. So they know it's AI generated. So it looks very corporate, lifeless, and sterile. What I like about VO3 is that it's imperfect. So those videos, they look kind of natural with variable lighting condition and micro expression and actual movements. And that passes the scroll test. I've tested it on my own ad account and I've seen considerable difference between agent stuff and this stuff. And some of you might have landed on this in this community or on this page because of those videos. So who is this perfect for? So this is for anyone spending over 50K monthly, or media buyers drowning in ad creative requests. For that's good for agencies charging for creatives too, e-commerce brands. So what I'm going to show you today is specifically focused towards courses and stuff like that. But you can quite easily build the similar system for products. So just animate products or have UGC videos with products inside it. That's also for performance marketers and anyone who has ever said, if only we had more creatives. So now I'm going to break down the system. So we are first going to build a marketing analysis document. So that's really, really important because if you don't have a marketing analysis or if you don't have a document that gives you the insight, you're not going to get the right message inside those videos. We are also going to build a bulk hook generation system. And obviously, we are going to build the mass video production workflows. And I will show you how to build a direct integration with Claude. And that's actually what we are going to begin with. I'm just going to show you the way it works before we go into the technical details with the credential setup and all that. So now we are going to go to Claude. So can you see the right screen here? I'm not sure. I'm going to share the whole screen so make it a lot easier. Just make it a bit bigger. So here we have this. It's going to be that one. Yeah, that's better now. So that's the Airtable database, and that's basically Claude. And here we have a workflow, which is an MCP server. So now we are going to get the system where so we are going to get Claude to talk directly with this Airtable database, and we are going to get it to perform a certain number of actions for us. So for this demo, well, we have several products, but I've just gone ahead and picked the first one in the weight loss niche. It's called Girls Gone Strong. Let me just show you the landing page. Girls Gone Strong. It's basically the landing page. So didn't bother too much. I just picked the first one. So here I copied everything and I pasted it inside the product section here, inside the product description. So basically everything in here is the actual landing page. Now I'm going to ask Claude to create an ICP for this specific product. So I'm going to start a new conversation. And here I'm going to ask create ICPs for girls gone strong. Now that's going to talk to the database and that's going to produce the output. This is going to take approximately a minute. So here, as you can see, it found the product called Girls Gone Strong. And now this is creating the ICPs. So what's happening is that here we have this MCP server, and here we have this workflow, which is an ICP creator. And this workflow is basically receiving a request from Claude and then building this ICP and then adding this ICP inside the content table. So here, as you can see, they've already been created. So for Girls Gone Strong, the perfect ICPs appear to be personal trainers, nutrition coaches, yoga instructor, midwife, health and wellness coaches. And here, what the system actually did is that it created Google Docs. So here, I'll show you the Google Docs. So now we have a complete market research for this one. So for Girls Gone Strong, and we are aiming towards personal trainers. And here we have the purpose statement, key findings, market opportunity, success metrics with statistics, scalability assessment. And then here we have the different hooks, which we are going to detail, and we are going to break it down into different hooks again, so that we can use different frameworks and different stuff. And then after that, we'll be able to create the different assets. So the system is doing an image. Now I'm going to take a couple of questions because I'm sure some of you have questions. And then we are going to go into the actual build. Perhaps I should make everyone a contributor, or you can just put it in the chat. Do you have questions, or I can go ahead with the build? No, it's okay. Okay, so I'll proceed with the build. So first of all, yeah, we have done here. Dan might have questions. So first of all, I'm going to talk about credentials because in the community, I've had a lot of questions about credentials and specifically how to set up N8N with Airtable. As you will see, this is not very complicated, but this is really paramount. Without that, we can't do anything. So first of all, we are going to go to Airtable. So here you'll see that the URL is basically airtable.com/create/tokens. I will give you the presentation, so you'll have the links, and that's basically the Builder Hub. So you can also find it here if you go inside N8N workflow and you don't know where to set up the credentials, you can click onto Docs here and then refer to Airtable credentials and here personal access token page. So that's where you need to go first. Then you need to create a new set of token. You'll give it a name. So that's going to be N8N, V3 or V4, whatever it is that you want. Access, make sure you give access to the right database or to the right databases. So I'll just select one database. This you don't need to touch it. So that's when you are creating the personal access token. Sorry, that's might be a bit confusing, so I need to detail that. There are two different ways to connect Airtable with N8N. The first one is personal access token, which is basically a code. So if you go inside N8N, here, this is the setup with auth2, which is what I will show you in a minute. But if you are not using this system, you can also connect with create a new set of credentials. And here you can click on access token. And this is requesting basically a key. So that's the key we have here. So personal access token, create a new token. and here set the different scopes. So this is always data.records, then read, and then this one, read comments in read, and then schema, and then add the database. And this is going to provide you with a code that you can add inside the access token here. So this is not my favorite way. My favorite way is actually using the auth2 method. So here I'll go inside N8N, I'll create a new token, I will create a new authentication, which is going to be auth2. And then here I'm requested to provide a client ID and a client secret. So again, that's within the same page. Here you see under developers, we have personal access token, and then here auth integrations. So I'm going to click on auth integration, and I'm going to register a new integration. So here this is going to be called N8N V5. And here I'm requested to add the redirect URL, which is this one. So I'll just copy it and paste it. Next, I will register the integration. Here I'm requested to, I'm not requested to do anything. In fact, here you don't want to click on that. This is just going to create confusion. So you select everything. Here you do not need to grant access. And then here, save changes. And when you do that, you will be provided with the client ID and the secret key. So you just need to make sure that you paste it in the right place and then save it. This is going to turn green. And to know that this is working, when it's first connected, you'll have your credentials to connect, and then here you'll have the resource, so you can select record or whatever you like. And then here in base and table, if this isn't showing, it means that it isn't connected properly. So you need to make sure that you always see bases and table from the lists. So that's clear enough, or I need to detail a bit. I need to detail that a bit more. Just tell me in the comments. That's an important step. Once this is done, yeah, okay, great. Once this is done, we'll also need to make sure that we have the replicate API key. So the replicate is simple. That's replicate.com. And then here, once you have created an account and added your credit card, you just need to go inside your profile, and here you will see API tokens. So you need to create a new set of token and then create it. Once you've created the token, so on YouTube, we often see people exposing their API keys, and that's very, very wrong because it can get intercepted by hackers, and also people can steal your API keys. So instead, what you need to do is to create the notification that it isn't working. Tell me in the comment, otherwise I'm talking to myself. So there are a couple of ways to set up those credentials. First one, you click on this plus button and then create credentials. Make sure that you select the right project. So you click on whichever project it is that you need. So let me just do it with you. I just open up a new page so I don't lose this one. Credentials. Okay, create a new set of credentials. So that's going to be add, continue. And here you'll see that inside the different systems, so for instance, in Replicate, you'll see that there is the API documentation. So here you need to check what do they request. There is authorization or API underscore key or whatever it is, but you will find it here in the API reference. Yeah, or it works the same for any services. So here you'll see that this is indicated. So you need to go back to make sure. So I lost the credential thing. And then make sure that you put the API key in here and then authorization or API key there. Make sure you rename that properly, and then you will be good to go. The API key is going to be encrypted, and that's going to be safe to use. So if I show you what it looks like inside an actual workflow, here you can see that I'm not exposing the API key. I'm using generic credential types, which is either auth, and I'm using either auth here, which is replicate, but have many different services. And if I show you the setup, so this is authorization, and then the value is the actual API key. That's all you need to do. So really simple. That's like a 2 minutes job. So next, you will also need to make sure that you have the authorization to use sensitive models with OpenAI. So you're going to log into OpenAI, and then you're going to go on general. And then here, you need to make sure that this is verified. If this isn't verified, you won't be able to use what they call the sensitive models, like creating images and stuff. And if you don't have that, if the verification hasn't been done, you're not going to be able to use the API key inside Replicate or any other tool that requires you to use your own API key, which needs to be verified. All right. So let me just accept everyone. Quite a lot of people at the door here. Do you have questions? No, no questions? So I can proceed with the rest of it. All right, cool. So let's proceed then. So first thing that we are going to create is the actual database. Here, I'm not going to recreate the database. For some of you that are inside the paid community, you'll find it here. So in the classroom, and then that's going to be inside the add creative, and then here Airtable database, and you will be able to duplicate that. So that's very simple. For those of you that are not inside the paid community, you need to recreate it, but I will explain how to proceed. So here we have different tables. Are you already familiar with Airtable, or this is very new to everyone? I'll just have a drink and let you tell me. Familiar. All right, great. That's cool. So the most confusing part with Airtable or any databases for the matter is the interrelationship between the different tables. So that needs to, in order not to get confused, you need to understand the thought process. So I'll show you the way the different tables are connected so that you can really understand the difference between the different kinds of fields. How do they connect and when do we use them? So I'm going to start with the most simple one, which is the product table. So here I have a product. So that's just the product name. This first column here never changes. So we could be using an ID or anything like that. If we use an ID, the problem is that this is what appears in the other table. So I like to have the name instead. And as you could see previously, Claude has no problem finding those products by name. It works well that way. So this is just basically a single text. Here we have a product description, which is a long text. And then here, that's where it gets a little bit complicated, but it's not that complicated. So this is a field that's been linked to another table. So here, as you can see, this is called ICP. So this wasn't there when I first created the table because this wasn't created, didn't exist. So I first created this ICP table, which could completely be empty or just have the first column. And then here inside the product table, I'll go inside edit field. And here, as you can see, this is linked to ICP. So this is the type of field is linked to another record. And then this is ICP. I allow linking to multiple record. And then here I will save it. So here, as you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but inside the icon, there is a very tiny arrow. So it means that we've linked a field. So if I was to add another field, so I'll just add a new one. So I'll add a lookup field. And that's within the ICP table because this has already been linked. So I'll just add that lookup field. And here I'm going to go for market research, for instance. So this is now creating the field. And here, as you can see, the market research is already populated because this is linked to this field here. In this one, there is a small arrow, which means that this is a link to another record. And in this one, there is a magnifier. So this is a lookup field. So the lookup field belongs to this linked field. Now I can delete it. So when I delete that, I don't lose the data. I would lose the data if I was to delete that one, but I'm not going to do that, obviously. So next, I want to make sure I have the angles too. So again, this would be empty. So I need to create the content angle table. So this one, as you can see, is a little bit more complex just because it's grouped, but I will delete all the grouping so that you can actually see it as it stands. And here, when the content angle table has been created, I can again use a edit field, or more likely link to another record, and then that's going to be content angles, and then allow linking to multiple record, and then create field. So again, if I was to add the lookup field, so a field belonging to those angle, like for instance, angle framework, I would just click on the column that has the arrow, and here I would click on add lookup fields, and then for instance, book type, add field. And here, as you can see, this is populated again because it has already been populated inside the other table. Is this clear for everyone? That's really, really important to understand how do we interlink the different tables. Yeah, clear? Okay, perfect. So the last field is a different type. This is a checkbox. And now I'll go into that a little bit later. That's really, really cool to have this checkbox here because this is basically a trigger. So when we click that, we actually perform an action. So previously, I've shown how to do it using Claude, and now I'm going to show you how to do it using the checkbox. And then I'm going to show you how we do it when we actually combine the two methods. So that's the product table. Now for ICP, we need the ICP name. We need market research, which is essentially a long text, a very long text even. So here, as you can see, this is exactly the same content than the one we have inside Google Doc. Here we have the content angle. Content angle is also linked to the content angle table. So this wouldn't exist if we didn't have the content angle table. So we need to create this content table angle first. Here the product, so the product is linked to the product. So again, if I edit field, link to product, a link to another record, product, and here I'm only allowing a single record because I don't want to have I want to have a different ICP or several different ICP for a given product and not the opposite way around. So here I'm getting the product description. So this is basically a lookup field is linked to the product. And here that's just the Google Doc. So the Google Doc is just the link to the Google Docs that are being created. Next, we are going to deal with the content angle table. So this one is interesting. So here, as you can see, we have the angle name, and here we have the angle framework. So this one is a single select, and here we have the different frameworks. And this is basically what we feed into the AI to create the different prompts so that we can actually create the videos and the images based on those different prompts. So that's GAS, ADA, before and after, testimonials, R2, story, and it's enough, but we could add as many as we want to. Here, the hook type, so that's also really important. That's also a single select. So question, statement, statistics, story, better than, without, controversy, challenge, etc. Here we have the emotional driver, which is also using fear, desire, curiosity, urgency, or social proof. Here we have the ICP, which is linked to the previous one. We have the product. And it's quite important to do it this way so that we don't have to make an extra core when we use those rows inside N8N. We basically use the content of the other table using the original record. So here we have the product description, we have the adango, and here we have different master prompts. So that's another table which I'm going to show you. So here, as you can see, this is all lookup fields. So they are all lookup fields. That's the video set. So that's when we are creating when the video is actually created. And here we have the other action. So that's basically a checkbox. So when this is checked, it performs certain action. Now I'm going to show you the master prompt. So that's also really, really important. So this is what we are using in the, so basically we have a master prompt, which looks like that. So that's, we give it the structure. And then we have a trigger to make sure that the prompt is created using the product, the ICP, the angle, so that we actually have everything pretty well aligned. And so that's the prompt creator. So we have different types. We have breaking news, interview style, influencer style, documentary style, training style, behind the scenes, testimonial, and straight interview. And each of those prompts are slightly different. Well, they are actually entirely different. It's just what I found to be working the best. Do you have questions? Is it recorded? I don't know. Yeah, if it records. All right, okay. So this table contains the name, contains the prompt, which is also a long text, style, which is also a single select, the video type, so the type, which could be video or images, and this is also a single select. Here we have the content tangles that are actually linked more just for traceability than anything else. They are not really used here. We have the prompts that are being generated with these master prompts. And then here we have the media asset. So if I show you what everything looks like from start to finish, so we have influencer style, for instance. So we have this master prompt. And then when this has been generated, we have the different content angles. So this is what's being used to create this actual prompt. So this actual prompt looks like that. And that's what we use. That's what's being passed inside the API to create the video. So that's pretty straightforward. It's not overly complicated. And here we have the different media assets. So let me see what they actually look like. There's this one. Here we have the different images. So each time we create a new set of assets, we request 4 images, just because this is not 100% accurate yet. Especially when you are using text overlays, sometimes the system is taking too much liberty. So it's important to have the different images that you can choose from. And in regards to videos, so let me just show you what videos are looking like. So these are not videos. I'll find it. So, okay, so next we are going to go inside the actual workflows in N8N. So I can show you how they are triggered, what do they do, how do they work, etc., etc. So if you have a professional plan or a paid plan inside Airtable, you will be able to use automations. So those automations are basically script. So if I show you inside the first table here, we have products, and then here we have create ICPs, which is basically a checkbox. And when that box is checked, triggers a script. So the automation is actually very, very simple. When a record matches a condition, which is if create ICPs is checked, then we check that the condition is actually checked. And then here we run the script. So this script is just passing the record ID to this webhook URL. So this webhook URL is produced by N8N. So let me just find the right one. So that's the one. So here, if we want a new webhook, we'll click on webhook. Now, for Airtable, that's always going to be a GET request. So don't make the mistake. If you have this to post, this isn't going to work. And here we are going to use the production URL. So we'll copy this, and then we'll go back inside Airtable. We are going to click on Edit Code. And here we are going to make sure that, well, there are two things that we need to do. So if you just copy this, you will see that I like actually do it with you so that you can really understand what I mean by that. Duplicate, that's the one, transcript, edit code. And here I'm going to delete the variables so that you can see what you need to do. So here, as you can see, this is underlined and this is underlined, which means that this hasn't been declared. So we'll need to add a new input variable, which we'll call exactly like that. So that's going to be record ID. The value is Airtable record ID. And then we'll use a new variable, which is going to be webhook URL. So I'm going to copy this and paste it. And here I'm going to use the webhook URL that I've just copied from this ICP creator. So which one it was? Well, it could be any. Just want to show you the process for just tweaking the script. Here, as you can see, we are not using the test URL. The test URL would be dash test. We are using the production URL, and then inside N8N, when that triggers, instead of waiting for the test data, we just pick the first execution, which would be this one, for instance, copy to editor, and pin, and so this would look like that. So the webhook would just be empty and then would just be pinned and unlinked, and we just need to basically build the rest of the webhook using the data that has already been passed, so we don't need to do it again and again. Do you have any questions? No questions? All right, so let's continue then. Finish editing. And then here inside this automation, there is another step, which is basically to update the record. So the update record is very simple. We are just resetting the checkbox to unchecked. So I'll just delete this automation because we won't need it. But that's basically the process. So just to resume, when this checkbox is checked, it matches the condition, which is product create ICP is checked. Then at this point, it runs the script, which is sending the record ID to the webhook URL, and then it resets the create prompt checkbox to empty. And then inside the actual workflow, that's the workflow, that's an execution. We get the record using the Airtable node. So this one is get, and then from the base, which is ads creator, and the table is product. So we are just looking for the content of this record ID. So we are looking for the content of a given row. Make sense? Once we have that, then we can proceed with the rest of it. So here I want 5 different ICPs for a given product. So this is a variable. So if I was to change that, if I was to say, let's say I only need 3, this is how many this is going to create using this LLM node. So this is very simple. So even when we are using Claude to trigger this automation, this is producing as many ICPs as we set in this edit field node. I'll just reset it to 5. That's a basic LLM node. So we pass the product name and we pass the product description. And then here we require specific output format. And as you will see, this is very simple. And here we are just making sure that we are just defining the number of ICPs that we need. We only need the name of those ICPs and nothing else. So I split it. If I was to do it the other way around, for instance, if I was to say, provide me 5 complete ICPs market research for a given product without going through the step of actually knowing what those ICPs are, I would not be able to split it out because the structure would be too difficult for the AI to analyze or for the system to analyze. So first I define the ICPs and then I split it out and then I create the different ICPs and market research. As you can see, I'm using different models. I'm using OpenAI to create the actual to create what those ICPs are. And then I'm using Gemini because it's much better at doing research in order to create the documents, this kind of documents. That way, I can also get statistics and research and all that, which I wouldn't be able to get, or at least it would probably be invented if we were to use just GPT for OpenAI 4.1 or something. I found it to be working really well with Perplexity as well, but not as well as with Gemini. Next, I will make sure that I detail that. So again, we are passing the product name, we are passing the product description and the ICP. So the ICP is coming from the previous node. So this one, the split node. And then here, the prompt is quite thorough and quite detailed. So here, this is a comprehensive business research document generator. And then here, we just request the different formatting requirements, the document structure, the overview, key findings, research-backed marketing angles and hooks, etc., etc. This is what allows to actually have images and videos that are really high quality and usable because we actually have the marketing research. Next, we are creating a record. So we are basically just passing the data we have from the previous node. So we are going to add this inside the ads creator base and the ICP table. And so the ICP name is coming from the first ICP profile creator, marketing research. So this is from the ICP creator, which is the LLM node working with Gemini. And then here we link the product. So when we link the product, we really need to be super careful because this only allows arrays. So arrays means that we could have several products linked. This is not possible because we only allow to link one product per ICP, but this is the formatting that Airtable requires. So here, as you can see, we have a couple of square brackets. So just before and after the actual expression. Really, really important. Otherwise, this is not going to work. So next, we are creating a Google Doc. So again, I wouldn't call that a specificity, but when you are creating Google Docs using N8N, you need to make sure that you first create the Google Doc and then you add the text within that Google Doc. So here, Google Doc, so we just create it, very, very simple. So we choose Google Drive and a folder. So we choose a specific folder. And then here the title is Market Research for, and that's the name of the product. And here that's the name of the ICP. So here, as you can see, all files have been created. And now we just add text to those files. So we can click on simplify because we don't need all the rest of it. And then here the object is text. The action is just insert. the insert segment is within the body, and at the end of a specific position or at index, we just use at the end of a specific position. And here, as you can see, we just pass everything. So the whole text that's coming from the ICP creator node. So this one. So yeah, this is truncated, but when the document is actually created, this isn't truncated at all. So that's how we get the market research and the ICP. And next, we are going to create different marketing angles for that given ICP. And then we are going to create prompts. And from those prompts, we are going to create videos. Does everything make sense so far? Yes. All right, cool. Let's continue. Okay, so next we are going to create marketing angles from those ICPs. So here we have the different marketing angles, and we have the different single select options, which is PAS, ADA, before and after, etc., etc. And then, as previously, we have within the ICP, we have create angles, which is a checkbox, and this checkbox is just using precisely the same kind of automation. So we just check that the checkbox is checked. And when this condition is met, it runs the script. So the script is exactly the same one. So again, we have the record ID, which is what's been passed and retrieved by N8N. And here we have the value, which is the value, that's the webhook URL. So if I show you inside the actual angle creator, so let me just, yeah, that's the one. So here we have two different kind of triggers. I'll explain that in a moment, but we are just going to focus on this one. So here, this is a get request. Here, this is the production URL. And here, as you can check, FA9B. And if we go back inside here, you can see FA9B. So that's the right one. So this is going to trigger each time the checkbox is checked. And then obviously it resets the checkbox to empty as soon as this has been processed. There are a few different ways to trigger those automations. I find that this one is really comfortable because you can just check as many checkboxes as you like. Just the problem is that when you are doing bulk creation, this can cause issues because it's not designed to create stuff in bulk. So I'll show you another way in a second. But this is what I find to be very comfortable for quality, because you can actually check the content before you launch it into production. I'm going to break the process down now. Okay, so I'm going to show you an actual execution. And again, the first node is looking for the record ID. So here, this is again from the base, from the ads creator base. The table is ICP, and the record ID is the record ID that we get from the webhook. So from the get request, here, as you can see, the script we have only passes this data. So that's all we need, because we just need to get the content from this table, from this row, using this get record. As a next step, here we have a funky prompt, which is basically using famous copywriter, so Gary Albert reincarnated. And then we request the system to create the different marketing angles based on the product and on the marketing research. And then here, we request the system to create different angles for PAS, ADA, before and after, testimonials, story-based, and then the different hook types. So question, statement, story, challenge. So basically, these are all the same than what we've been defining in the single select. So here, if we go inside the single select, and I show you the angle framework, edit, and then PS, AIDA, before and after, testimonial, how to, story, etc., etc. So these are exactly the same. These are the hooks examples. And I find that examples are working a lot better than instructions. And that's what we tend to see. The larger the models get, the more they tend to react well to different examples, less to instructions. So that's why we see very long prompts not working as well as they used to. This has been proven by different benchmarking stuff as well. So here I'll just make sure that each angle is separated with a vertical bar. So that's really, really important as well, because here we are using the item list output parser, and we define the number of items, which is basically 25. For each ICP, we get 25 different marketing angles. And then here, basically the marketing angles are separated by this vertical bar. And that's how we get the system to retrieve the right information. So here we have an information extractor. So that's retrieving the framework, the hook type, the emotional driver, the angle, and the target pain point. And next, so that's a very simple workflow. We create a record for each. So I'm just going to break down the different expressions because that's important. So here we are creating a record inside the ads created base. Sorry, the table is content angles. We map everything manually. So it's not create or update, it's just create because we assume that we don't have them. The angle name, so we just pass the name of the angle. And then here, as you can see, this is structured a little bit weird. It's not that weird. Is that if the information extractor passes the data in a different format, it will always return the right one. So it returns the format exactly as we have it inside the Airtable database so that it doesn't trigger an error and it always works. If none is being defined, it returns PAS. It doesn't happen very often. The hook type, that's exactly the same. So here, this is, exactly the same. So we just make sure that we allow a specific type of content. The ICP, so that's really, really important. So this ICP is basically attached to the ICP table. So this is requesting an array. So we use Airtable, which is the first node, .item.json.id, but we have those square brackets which make this expression an array, which is accepted by Airtable. And then we do the same for the product, and we do the same for the angle. And here, as you can see, when we attach the product, we don't need to pass the product description or the product's name or anything like that. We just pass the record ID, and then everything else is retrieved by the actual Airtable database because this is attached. So this is the array is basically giving the link to another record. And from that, we can add a lookup field, which is going to give in a certain number of information from this linked record. Make sense? Does it make sense or is just confusing? All right, thanks. Let's carry on. So here, as you can see, and that's what I should have done actually. So this delete everything that you don't need. Otherwise, Airtable, where N8N tends to override the data. So everything that you don't need, you need to delete it. And here, this is actually very important. This create a set is a checkbox, exactly the same one than the one we've been using, which triggers the script. So if this is toggled on, this is going to add the checkbox, which is going to trigger the script. So this is very useful if we want to have like a chain reaction, like then the different angles, then the different prompts, then the different sets. And we want everything to be done in one go. We just have to leave this toggled on. But If we want to have a little bit more control, we just either delete it or make sure that this is turned off. Really, really important. Otherwise, you're going to just trigger chain reactions everywhere. I'll make sure that this is saved. So we have the ICP, so we have documents like that. We have the different angles, so the different angles are looking like that. So here, as you can see, we have the different angle names. And then here we have the actual add angles. So 25 add angles per ICP. So if we have one product and then 25 and then 5 ICPs and then 25 angles per ICP, count the number of, so that's actually not very complicated to calculate, that's 25. That's 125 different marketing angles for a given product, and we can create a lot of different sets. So next, we are going to talk about prompt creation, and that's also really important. So here we have the master prompt table. The master prompt table comprises prompts that are very, very thorough. But this is not what we want. We don't want a prompt like that passed into the API request, because this isn't going to be understood, and this is going to create something that's going to be way off. So we first need to have a prompt to create the prompts. Make sense? And then we can control those prompts, or we can tweak those prompts so that we can create the different sets. So here we have the different content angles. We have the checkbox create prompt. So for those of you who have not seen it before, because you've just joined, I'll show you what that does. So that's the checkbox. This checkbox is within the automation, triggers a script. So this is going to be this one, create prompt. So that's from the content angles. When you check this box, so basically when this condition is met, it triggers a script. The script is very, very simple. It just passes the record ID into this webhook URL. So here the webhook URL we are looking for is the one from the prompt creator. So that's this one, create prompt. So here, if I go into the production URL, and then just, so that's D633. So I'm going to go back inside this script, and here you'll see that this is D633. So that matches. And then again, when the script has been run, we reset the checkbox to empty so that we can actually run it again. So now I'm going to talk about the prompt creator. It's going to be that one. So again, the first node is get record. So we basically get the content from the record ID. So this is from the table content angles. Let me just show you an execution instead to show you the actual workflow. So copy to editor. Here you see we have the record ID, and here we get the basically everything we need from this given row. So here, if I check for this one, so 80% of my deal close after the fifth follow-up. And if I go inside data, content angle, I'm going to have one that looks like that. So it's going to be this one, most likely. 80% of my deal close after the fifth follow-up. And here, as you can see, we get the marketing angle and the product description from the lookup fields. So all this data is not specifically linked, is not specific to that row. It's basically that row contains linked fields which are linking to other tables. So you can see, because it's written in brackets like that, in parentheses like that, product description from product. So that means this is coming from a different table. So you can obviously rename, but I don't rename because it gets confusing. So I just leave it as such. Next, code node here. And so basically this code node is quite simple. It just defines how many how many angles or how many prompts do I need. So like if I link multiple angles to multiple prompts, I'm going to have as many prompts as needed. So here, as you can see, I have one record, but this record provides three different items. So each of those items are different. So it's going to create three different prompts. So create very short prompt for an AI video creator. Only provide the prompt and nothing else. So I use the Adango, I use the product, and obviously the product description. As you can see here, it's quite full on. The framework, the type of the set, and the hook type. And then here I have a prompt instruction, which is basically using the master prompt. So that's really important because you get a lot of control. Like if you are not satisfied with the quality of your prompts, or if you're not satisfied with the quality of your videos or the quality of your images, it's a prompt issue. It's most likely a prompt issue. But you can fix it easily by just making sure that you are creating better prompts. And so you can go inside this table and make sure that this is accurate. So to debug that, you just do them one at a time, obviously. And here I'll create the different prompts. So as you can see, these prompts are much shorter than the master prompts. And here I'll just link the asset name. So that's going to be the name of my angle. The prompt, the status is going to be set to do. So that's again a single select. The product, which is enclosed within square brackets. And then here I have the product, which I need to delete because that's not needed. The angle's name. As you can see, this is grayed out. So we can't manipulate this data anyway, because this is coming from another table. And this is a lookup field. So type from master prompt. So this is coming from a different table. So we can't tweak that. So I just need to remove it. And here we have the product, the angle. As you can see, they are all attached basically to the previous tables. And that's all there is to it. If I show you the prompts and what do they look like. So here we have the master prompts. And here we have the prompts that are actually ready for video production or image production. So as you can see, this is much, much shorter. A medium shot of Jake, freelancer, and then I'll take that and I'll go here and then I'll paste it back in there. I'll show you how to work with the API in a second, but I'll just let that run for a second so that you can see the actual output. And now I'm going to show you how the actual video creation works. So we are going to work with the APIs, but as you will see, this is really, really straightforward. It's really not complicated at all. So here I'm just going to go back inside the table. Here we have the prompts that have already been created. As you can see, they are all attached to the right product. They are all attached to the right angle. And then here they are attached to the right master prompts. So this is influencer style or whatever it's called. Yeah, the influencer style. And here I have a create a set checkbox. This, yeah, the prompting is key. That's right. If you can't get the prompt right, the outcome is going to be terrible. So next, so again, I'm going to break it down because someone just joined. So I don't want to miss that. It's really, really important. So basically this checkbox is a trigger. And the way it works is that we check the condition. So using the automation. And here we have the create a set. So we are looking if within the prompts table, create a set is checked. If this is the case, we run the script. So the script passes the record ID, so the row, into this webhook URL. And then as a next step, just resets the checkbox to empty. So why this is an error, received invalid output. This is odd. I'll check it later. Anyway, let me just show you what the actual process looks like. So the creation process is a two-step process. You will see it on YouTube where you'll have people, and I'll show you an example actually. I'm not going to show you an example because this is wrong, but I will show you how this would be built. So here we have the create a set workflow, which as you can see is very, very simple. I've only created very simple workflows for this system, in fact. If we were to create this video just like that, so that's the API call, I'll detail it in a second. We could quite easily like have a get another HTTP request, which is going to be a get request. Let me just pass an execution so that I copy that to editor. And this is going to, I'm going to have to do it from the lower branch. One is for videos, this one is for videos, this one is for images. And I've tweaked it so that it works for images for just to map the data, but I will switch it back to normal in a second. So here it's exactly the same process. So here we have the basically the API, which will create images from GPT image one. So this is exactly the same. This is the latest model. That's the one you need the specific authorization for. And here, that's the basically the HTTP request. If this was badly built, we wouldn't have that. This wouldn't be needed. Like the webhook and the webhook event filter wouldn't be needed. And here as the next step, all we would need to have is an HTTP request. And here that's going to be from this previous node. So I'm just going to run it so that you can see. It could work a bit faster. Anyway, I'll show you what the thing is. Decided to take his time, so I'm not gonna make you wait for that. So instead to have this webhook URL, I would have a polling system, which means that it's going to be waiting for each images or each videos to be ready in order to proceed to the next step, which means that for videos, you could be waiting anywhere between 60 to 120 seconds, so 1 to 2 minutes for the creation of that video. And for images, it's around about 25 to 30 seconds for 4 images. But this is not the right way, especially when you do it in bulk. So yeah, here, if I had a polling system, it would be an HTTP request. And then here I would have a if node. And then here the condition would be succeeded. And then here I'm going to have a wait step and then wait again. And so each time this is going to check using this get request to see if the step has been succeeded or not. But in fact, this is quite counterproductive. Instead, you need to have a different workflow, which is a workflow just to get a set. As you can see, this is very, very simple. So this is just a webhook. So this webhook is a post request. So don't get it mistaken with the get request that we've used previously for Airtable. This is actually very specific. Most of the time, these are post requests. Here, I'm going to be using the production URL. And here inside the HTTP request, all I need to do is to declare a webhook, which is going to be exactly what I've just copied. And then the webhook event filter is going to be completed. So now each time a job is being completed, it's going to ping this get a set, and that's just going to update the data inside the Airtable database when it's ready, and it's not going to wait for it to be ready. So if we were to process 100 angles at the time, this would not break. Well, I would have to create a loop, but yeah, this isn't going to break. So now I'm going to walk you through the different API calls. And as you will see, they are very simple. So the first one is going to be a post request to VO3 prediction. I use replicate, but as I've mentioned previously, you can use far or you can use whatever you like. Let me just give you the link. This has decided to stop working. Yeah, so that's the model here, VO3. Here we have the API documentation. So we are always looking for the API reference. We also need to understand the schema and how it works. And then here, as you can see, we can pass webhook. So we declare the webhook URL, we declare the webhook filter, and the request is actually very straightforward. This is just prompt, which is within the input, and the API actual URL is just VO3 slash prediction models slash Google slash VO3 slash prediction. So very simple. And then here again, I need to walk you through the different credentials. So for those of you who were not here before, it's really important that you don't put the credential like we see it sometimes on YouTube, where people go headers and then they go authorization and then they paste their API key in here and everyone can see it. And if it gets intercepted, well, basically they get their API key compromised. Instead, you need to create, so this is going to be empty. You need to choose generic credential type, a generic host type, and then here, this is going to be empty. So you need to click on this pencil here and then create new credential. That's going to be authorization. And then here the key. And make sure you name it correctly. Otherwise, you will lose those credentials. But that's basically the process to protect your API key. And here we have the input, which is basically the prompt, the webhook URL, which that's what we want to be pinged when the asset is actually ready. And we want it to be pinged whenever the job is completed. Any questions? This might be a little bit technical for some. I catch the opportunity to have a drink in the meantime. It's boiling hot in here. It's like 35 in the south of France now. Next, that's also really important. No, it's not. It will be in the next couple of days. It's prepared. Just need to make sure everything is polished. Here, so as you can see, we'll be getting a generation ID, which is what we are going to use to make sure that the set is mapped correctly to the right row. So here we are using the generation ID, and then everything else is just basically linked to the product, to the angle, and to the prompt. And as a next step, we'll just need to make sure that the workflow to receive those assets is ready. So it works the same way, the exact same way for video creation and for images. For images, we are using a different URL. We are using GPT image-1. We are using exactly the same type of headers. We are using the exact same header, full stop, with the exact same API key. And here we are passing the prompt. So the quality is auto, background is auto, moderation is low, aspect ratio for ads, one-on-one is good. The format output you can choose, but yeah, that's fine. And this is the API key, which is actually authorized to use this model. It cannot be hidden. We can't add it inside the headers or the parameters. So I'll just make sure that I'll delete that afterwards. But that's basically the only way to make it work at the moment. Here, the number of images is 4. Image compression 90, that's fine. And again, that's the same webhook which will be pinged when the job is completed. Here I'm going to revert back to the, yeah, so there you go. We have the video of Jake, a freelancer, 30 years old. So you see here, what's really interesting is that the guy actually said exactly that. So 1K, 1K. That's the reason why inside this workflow, there is this basic LLM chains, which is basically a prompt modifier. So we take the prompt and we turn it into something that can easily be spoken by an AI. So make sure the speech is 20 words max, or change it in a Gary Alberts or with whoever style you want. With high energy, convert all numbers to text for AI voice delivery, include a strong click CTA, no subtitles, and replace dashes by commas. So this is basically cleaning the prompt so that we don't get this 1K or anything like that. Yeah, that's a good question, Akash. You can, but it doesn't work the same way. Like if I was to do video creation, let me do a video create. Let me just plug this one back in because that's not the image branch. The image branch is this one. So, so that's going to be AI. It's going to be OpenAI, and that's going to be generate an image. And instead, that's going to be GPT image. And here I can drag the prompt. But here, as you can see, this is going to wait until all of those images are ready. And that's not what I want. I want the job to be processed and then to receive the data when ready. I don't want the workflow to wait. Yeah, to answer the question. And it's actually the same price. If you look at the price in Replicate and the price on OpenAI pricing table, it's the same. Where was I? I was here. So next we need to make sure that this is all updated. So that's all updated. And next we are going to make sure that we are ready to receive the data. So this is within the getter set. So that's the webhook that we've declared in the previous APIs. And here, as you can see, we are going to search a record. So I'm going to launch an execution so that you can see what it actually looks like. So that's going to be, and that's actually very important. So that's a search operation. We search from the image set table. So from this has actually been renamed. It's the media asset table. Yeah, change it like that. Here we are looking for the generation ID. And so that's really important. We pass that when the API call is being made. And then we use that in order to map the data to the correct row. Otherwise we would have images here and that there, and then this wouldn't be attached to anything. What allows it to be attached is this generation ID. So we need to make sure that this is the right one. And for that, we filter by formula. So this is a very simple one. That's generation ID equals JSON.body ID. And here, as you can see, this is what we get inside webhook. So this is basically coming from Replicate. We get the ID, and then we get the input with the aspect ratio and basically everything that we need. And then as the next step, we return everything. We make sure that we use the get request. And here we use the same parameter. So the get request uses, let me just stop this workflow here. I just want to show you what it actually looks like inside the. So here we get the output, and we have three different kind of URLs that they provide: cancel, get, trim, and web. So if we, for instance, if we use web and if we are logged in, we are going to land on the actual page with the generation. So this only has a certain amount of time that it stays on. But basically, once you have it generated, if you immediately go to this thing, you will see your generation being processed. What we need is get, and then we need to map this output. So these output are like that. So this is not found, obviously. This has already been deleted from the server, but it's present inside the Airtable database. And the reason why it is present is because we've mapped it immediately. So we used the get request. So we basically got all of that. And then as a next step, we mapped everything inside the Airtable database. So we used the generation ID. And then within the attachment column, we used this expression to map all URL. So we have all of those images that have already been produced and added inside the Airtable database. That's exactly the same way for VO3. So we have a question here, Kash. With Replicate in India, I've had a lot of payment issue, but there are plenty of services that you can use. For instance, you can use Thor, and it's exactly the same. And you'll see they look exactly the same. So here you go into Playground, and you see that's very, very similar. Playground. There is another one which is called What was the name of it? There are at least half a dozen of those. They are just basically API portals that are in between the systems that you are using and the LLMs or whatever is the model. Yeah, it's all the same. And price-wise, the difference is really small. Like the Thor, they tell you that it costs 375 for 5 seconds. And in Replicate, they tell you that it will cost you 8 for 10. So the difference is not even worth the trouble, in my opinion. Yeah, $6 for 8 seconds. Oh yeah, because with the VO3 you can only run for 8 seconds. So you see it's approximately the same. With sound on. Now, as I've mentioned at the beginning of this video, there are different models that you can use. Now there is this cadence that's gaining popularity, but there is no sound. So you need to use an extra layer in order to add the sound. But it's a lot cheaper. So based on the usage, based on what you're going to do with those videos, you can choose one or the other. In my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to use Cadence and then use another application to put sound on top of a slicing kiwi or something like that. It makes more sense for me to use videos that actually have people talking, like in interview style or like headshots or influencer style, than it is to make videos of sliced kiwis. But if you are going to do a product video where you want it featured on the beach or somewhere like that, or in a specific environment, you can do that and then add sound on top of it. If there is no human talking, that will work very well. So that's basically the process. So we have products, and then from those products, we create different ICPs. We get the document, so the research document from those ICPs. Based on this research document, we create the different content angles. So we create 125 different content angles per product. We can do a lot more, like if we are to multiply the number of ICPs or the number of angles. And then as a next step, we create the different prompts based on those master prompts. And then we create the different assets based on those prompts. That makes sense? Or do you have any questions? We've been around for like an hour and 40 minutes. I wasn't expecting it to be so long. Yeah, as you know, I'm a big fan, but I lost you after 15 minutes. Do you have somebody that can deploy? Thank you. Yeah, actually, this is going to be, well, for pretty much all of my systems, I'm going to, well, for some of you who were here last week, made a little bit of a deep dive like that about the AI recruiter agent. And this is going to be, in my opinion, very revolutionary. So instead of you guys having to set it all up and all that, I'm working on white labeling those solutions. And I'm going to do the same for pretty much all those systems. So basically handling all the tech and then just handle the sales. Cash said, I'll just swap HTTP. Yeah, that's right. The VO3, yeah, the price is the same. Yeah, the recruiter system is really something. I forgot to talk about the MCP stuff. So perhaps I should cover that as well, because you will see that this is definitely not as complicated as you might think it is. So first of all, when we began this video, when we began the presentation, I've shown how it works in Claude. And so the system is very, very simple to connect. So inside Claude here, inside the parameters, you'll see that you have integrations. And within integrations, you have different, you can basically add your own integration. So here you need a URL. So the URL is basically your ICP, your MCP. So in N8N, it looks just like that. So you just click on this button, MCP, MCP client, and here you're going to get this production URL, which ends by SEC, and then go into Claude and paste that URL, just name it in here, and then add. You just need to make sure that the workflow is set to active. And then here you can add as many tools as you want. For instance, we have this one, the ICP creator, but we also have this Airtable get product. And here I just need to add a few more. But for instance, if I was to get, I wouldn't want to get product, but I want to get prompts. I just need to set it differently. And here I'm going to select master prompts, and I'm not going to filter by anything. And here I'm just going to define it. So that's going to get prompts in Airtable. I'm going to save this. And here inside Claude, so I've already integrated it. So I'm going to open it. And here you see have the product, etc. So sometimes, and there you have it, get prompts. So I'm going to authorize without supervision. And then here, the next step, if I, do we have a master prompt for video generation inside Airtable? And here that's going to find, also it looked for product. So when it does that, you need to make sure that the definition or when to use the tool is properly described. You see now, it got me all the prompts. So as a next step, I could quite easily plug another one here, another Airtable, and I can say, for instance, check the box to create videos. And then this is going to check the box and the video creation is going to run. So basically the MCP stuff is plumbing. It doesn't, you can make it smart if you plug it to an AI agent. So the AI agent is the brain, but you can also make it quite accessible and useful just by plugging it into Claude, just like that. All right. So do we have questions? Yeah, Carrie? Yeah, sure, chat. Yeah, as I've mentioned before, I'm going to white label all of those systems because I realized that it can be a bit technical, or at least there is a learning curve that some of you don't have time to take. Even if I make the systems and the explanations as simple as possible, there is still a learning curve. Like if you look at those workflows, like they couldn't be easier. They are really like dead simple. But it requires to understand how this is built and how this all works together. All right, cool. So if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to wrap it up. As I've mentioned, this is going to be available inside the Archive Extreme. So I've already prepared the course with the templates. So the ICP creator, create a set, get a set, create prompts and the different prompts and all that, and the Airtable database. So for some of you that are not inside the community, I've detailed it enough so that you can work it out for yourself. All right, cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.